Have you ever looked at someone and wondered, how can a person say they love me, but never choose me? That question has kept millions of people awake at night, because the hardest truth isn't being rejected. The hardest truth is being kept close enough to give you hope, but never close enough to give you commitment. Some people don't waste your time by leaving. They waste your time by staying just enough to stop you from moving on. Ride that again in your heart. A man who truly wants a future with you doesn't spend years deciding if you're worth it. He doesn't keep you on standby while he figures himself out. He doesn't make you compete with uncertainty. When a man knows, he moves. Maybe not overnight, but his actions begin pointing in one direction. And that direction is towards you. Too many people mistake attention for intention. He calls you he. He texts you. He tells you he misses you. He spends time with you. But none of those things automatically mean commitment. Attention can be temporary. Desire can be temporary. Loneliness can be temporary. Commitment is different. Commitment is a decision. And decisions always show themselves through actions. The first brutal sign he will never commit to you is that he keeps talking about one day, but never creates day one. Listen carefully. People who are serious don't live inside the future. They build in the present. He says, one day we'll travel. One day we'll move in together. One day I'll be ready. One day everything will make sense. But every month looks exactly like the month before. Every year feels like the year before. The promises change, the excuses change, the calendar changes. But the relationship never changes. Hope can become dangerous when it's attached to someone who has no intention of changing. Hope keeps people waiting. Hope convinces you that next month will be different. Hope whispers that if you're just a little more patient, everything you've dreamed about will finally happen. But hope without evidence becomes emotional imprisonment. You start defending someone who keeps disappointing you. You explain away behavior that should have been a warning. You tell yourself he's under pressure. He's stressed. He's healing. He's busy. He's confused. And maybe all of those things are true. But here's the question you have to ask yourself. How long does confusion get to control your future? Because someone can genuinely care about you and still never choose you. That's the painful part. Love alone isn't enough. Feelings alone aren't enough. Chemistry alone isn't enough. If someone refuses to make a decision year after year, they've already made one. Indecision is often a decision wearing a disguise. You deserve someone whose future includes you, not someone who keeps renting your heart while refusing to buy into your life. The second brutal sign is even harder to accept. He gives you just enough affection to keep you emotionally invested, but never enough security to let you relax. 1 week, he's incredible. He calls. He compliments you. He makes you feel like the only person in the world. You start believing things are finally changing. Then silence, coldness, mixed signals. You spend days wondering what happened. Was it something you said, something you did? Maybe if you text first. Maybe if you're more understanding. Maybe if you're less emotional. Slowly, without realizing it, you begin changing yourself to fit someone who refuses to stay consistent. That's one of the most dangerous things inconsistency does. It makes stable people question themselves. You stop asking whether he's treating you right. You start asking whether you're enough. And those are two completely different questions. Someone who truly values you doesn't keep making you earn basic consistency. Real commitment creates peace. Confusion creates anxiety. Pay attention to what your relationship produces. If every week feels like an emotional roller coaster, if you're constantly trying to decode his behavior, if you're always wondering where you stand, that's not emotional intimacy. That's emotional uncertainty. And uncertainty can become addictive. Why? Because the human brain starts chasing the next moment of affection. You become emotionally attached to the highs because the lows hurt so much. One good conversation erases 10 painful days. One compliment makes you forget weeks of neglect. One apology convinces you to stay another month. Eventually, you're no longer fighting for love. You're fighting for moments. That's not the relationship you deserve. The right relationship doesn't leave you guessing whether you matter. It doesn't force you to analyze every message. It doesn't make you celebrate the bare minimum as though it's extraordinary. Consistency isn't perfection. Nobody is perfect. Everyone has difficult seasons. Everyone makes mistakes. But there's a difference between someone who occasionally falls short and someone who has built inconsistency into the foundation of the relationship. When commitment is real, effort becomes consistent, not flawless, consistent. And if years have passed with the same cycle repeating over and over again, stop expecting a different ending from the same story. Sometimes the greatest act of self-respect is believing someone's actions the first time instead of believing their promises for the 100th time. The third brutal sign is one that many people ignore because it doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, almost quietly, until one day you realize you've built your entire emotional life around someone who has never truly built theirs around you. He keeps you separated from the parts of his life that actually matter. You know pieces of him. You know his favorite food. You know his favorite music. You know what stresses him out. But somehow, after all this time, you still feel like a visitor instead of a partner. You don't know where you really stand with the people closest to him. You don't know what role you play in his future. You aren't included in the conversations that shape his life. You're close enough to share his weekends, but never close enough to share his plans. That's not an accident. When someone sees you as part of their future, they naturally begin making room for you in it. Not because they're forced, because they want to. Love expands. Avoidance creates distance. There is a difference between moving at a healthy pace and permanently keeping someone outside the door. Time removes excuses. If months become years and nothing changes, you have to stop asking when he'll let you in and start asking why he never intended to. Some people enjoy the comfort of having someone who loves them without accepting the responsibility that comes with loving them back. They want loyalty without commitment, support without sacrifice, affection without accountability. They enjoy knowing someone is always there. They enjoy the reassurance. They enjoy the attention. But enjoying your presence isn't the same as choosing your future. Never confuse convenience with commitment, because convenience disappears the moment something easier comes along. Commitment stays when life becomes difficult. Anyone can love you when everything is easy. Real character shows itself when love requires responsibility. Ask yourself a difficult question. If nothing changed over the next 5 years, would you still be happy staying exactly where this relationship is today? Most people don't answer that question honestly because the answer scares them. They're not in love with the relationship they have. They're in love with the relationship they hope will exist someday. Hope has its place, but hope should never replace reality. Reality always leaves clues. Reality isn't hidden. Reality speaks through actions. When someone consistently avoids taking the relationship to the next level, that behavior deserves your attention more than their words, because words tell you what someone wants you to hear. Patterns tell you who they are. The fourth brutal sign is painful because it attacks your confidence without you even noticing. You find yourself constantly proving your worth. Think about that. Love should reveal your value, not force you to defend it. If every conversation feels like an interview, if every disagreement makes you fear he'll disappear, if every boundary feels like it might cost you the relationship, you're no longer building love. You're protecting access. Healthy love doesn't require endless auditions. You're not applying for a position that expires every week. You're offering your heart. And your heart deserves to be received with gratitude, not constant evaluation. Many people spend years trying to become good enough for someone who has already decided they don't want commitment. They lose weight, change in their personality, stop speaking up, hold their emotions, accept behavior they once promised themselves they would never tolerate. Little by little, they become strangers to themselves. The tragedy isn't only that they lose the relationship. The tragedy is that they lose themselves before the relationship even ends. Never make someone your destination if they keep treating you like an option. Ride that again. Your value cannot increase by shrinking yourself. It doesn't happen. The more you abandon your standards to keep someone, the less they respect the sacrifice you're making. Respect grows when people know your standards have meaning, when your no actually means no, when your boundaries aren't temporary, when your peace matters as much as your feelings. People often think commitment comes from loving someone harder. It doesn't. Commitment comes from two people choosing each other. You cannot love someone into becoming ready. You cannot convince someone to value what they don't appreciate. You cannot negotiate genuine desire. You shouldn't have to. The right person doesn't need to be persuaded that you're worth building a future with. They recognize it. That doesn't mean relationships are effortless. Every relationship requires patience, communication, forgiveness, growth. But effort should move both people forward, not leave one person standing still while the other keeps making promises about tomorrow. Pay attention to where your energy goes. If you're always the one fixing, always forgiving, always understanding, always initiating, always chasing clarity, ask yourself why the relationship depends so heavily on your effort. Healthy love is not one person carrying two hearts. It's two people carrying one future. Too many people become addicted to potential. They fall in love with who someone could become instead of accepting who they consistently are. Potential is exciting. Reality is revealing. Build your life around reality, not imagination. Because imagination creates fantasy, reality creates peace. And peace is one of the greatest signs you've chosen someone who truly chooses you. When someone is committed, they don't leave you wondering if you're important. They show you again and again, not through perfect words, but through consistent actions. And consistency will always tell the truth, long before promises ever do. The fifth brutal sign is the one that hurts the deepest, because by the time you recognize it, you've usually invested your time, your energy, your loyalty, and pieces of your heart that you'll never get back. He only changes when he's afraid of losing you. Think about that for a moment. Every serious conversation you've had, every tear you've cried, every time you try to explain your feelings, every time you begged to be heard, nothing changed. But the moment you finally began walking away, the moment he realized you were serious, suddenly he became the man you had been waiting for. He started calling more. He became affectionate. He apologized. He made promises. He talked about the future. He acted like everything was finally going to be different. But ask yourself one question. Why did it take losing you to make him treat you the way you deserved all along? Real love doesn't wait until the relationship is dying to become healthy. Real commitment doesn't appear only when someone's comfort is threatened. Fear can change behavior for a moment. Character changes behavior for a lifetime. Anyone can become amazing during a crisis. The real test is who they are after the crisis is over. Because once they feel safe again, many people return to exactly who they've always been. The phone calls become less frequent. The effort disappears. The excuses come back. The cycle starts again. This is why so many people feel trapped. Every time they prepare to leave, they get just enough hope to stay. And every time they stay, they lose a little more confidence in themselves. You cannot build a peaceful future on temporary improvements. Look for permanent patterns, not emotional emergencies. One apology does not erase years of inconsistency. One romantic weekend does not replace months of neglect. One promise cannot compete with repeated disappointment. People reveal themselves over time. Believe what time keeps showing you. One of the greatest mistakes people make is confusing emotional intensity with genuine love. Someone can cry and still not change. Someone can say they can't live without you and still refuse to commit. Someone can promise forever and still continue choosing temporary behavior. Never measure love only by emotion, but by responsibility, because responsibility is what transforms feelings into commitment. Anyone can feel. Not everyone is willing to build. Relationships aren't sustained by butterflies. They're sustained by decisions. Every single day. The decision to communicate. The decision to respect. The decision to be honest. The decision to stay faithful. The decision to grow together instead of growing apart. Commitment isn't something you say. It's something you repeatedly choose. Stop asking whether he loves you. Start asking whether he leads you toward the future you deserve. Those are completely different questions. Love without direction becomes confusion. Love without consistency becomes anxiety. Love without commitment becomes waiting. And waiting has stolen more dreams than failure ever has. There are people who have waited 5 years, 10 years, even 20 years, always believing that the next conversation would finally change everything. But life keeps moving. Time never pauses while someone decides whether you're enough. Every birthday, every holiday, every season, time keeps passing. The saddest thing isn't growing older. The saddest thing is realizing you spent years waiting for a version of someone that never truly existed. Never make permanence out of someone's temporary attention. Never build your identity around another person's uncertainty. You are not difficult to love because someone refused to commit. You are not unworthy because someone couldn't recognize your value. Their inability to choose does not reduce your worth. Diamonds don't become less valuable because someone walks past them. The ocean doesn't lose its power because one person refuses to sail. The sun doesn't stop shining because someone closes the curtains. Your value has never depended on another person's decision. It has always existed. The challenge is remembering it when your heart is hurting. Sometimes walking away isn't giving up. Sometimes walking away is finally agreeing with what reality has been trying to teach you all along. You can't force readiness. You can't manufacture maturity. You can't rescue someone from decisions they refuse to make. People change when they decide that changing more than staying comfortable. Until then, every promise is only a possibility. And possibility should never become the foundation of your future. One day you'll meet someone who doesn't make commitment feel like a prize you have to earn. They won't leave you guessing. They won't disappear every time life becomes difficult. They won't make you compete with uncertainty. They'll make their intentions clear. Not because they're perfect, but because they're honest. And honesty creates security. You'll finally understand what peace feels like. You'll stop checking your phone every 5 minutes. You'll stop overthinking every conversation. You'll stop wondering where you stand because you'll know when someone truly wants to build a life with you. Clarity replaces confusion. Consistency replaces chaos. Commitment replaces excuses. And love finally feels like home instead of a battlefield. If you're listening to this today, don't ignore the feeling that's been living quietly inside your heart. That feeling you've been trying to silence. That question you've been afraid to answer. Deep down, most people already know the truth. They just hope the truth will change before they have to accept it. But life begins to transform the moment you stop asking people to become who they have repeatedly shown you they are not. Acceptance is not weakness. Acceptance is freedom. The day you stop chasing mixed signals is the day your peace starts returning. The day you stop begging for consistency is the day you remember your own value. The day you stop settling for almost is the day you make room for something real. Never forget this. You teach people how to treat you by what you continue to tolerate. Every time you ignore disrespect, you silently approve it. Every time you excuse repeated disappointment, you tell the other person your standards are flexible. Every time you stay where your heart is constantly hurting, you convince yourself that pain is simply part of love. But it isn't. Love should challenge you to grow. It should never force you to abandon yourself. You were not created to spend your life proving your worth to someone who keeps questioning it. You were not created to shrink your dreams just to fit inside someone else's uncertainty. You were not created to wait at the door of a future someone has no intention of opening. Your time is valuable. Your peace is valuable. Your heart is valuable. Guard them carefully. Because every day you spend holding on to someone who refuses to commit is a day you cannot fully embrace the life waiting for you. Imagine waking up every morning without wondering if you'll receive a text. Imagine going to sleep without replaying every conversation in your mind. Imagine loving someone who never makes you question where you stand. That kind of peace exists, but you'll never experience it if you keep convincing yourself that confusion is love. One of the strongest people in the world isn't the person who can endure endless heartbreak. It's the person who knows when to walk away from it. Strength isn't measured by how much pain you can tolerate. Strength is measured by how much self-respect you refuse to surrender. There comes a moment when you have to stop looking for closure from the person who created the confusion. Your closure comes from recognizing the pattern. Your closure comes from believing the evidence. Your closure comes from choosing yourself. You don't need another promise. You need a decision. And if they refuse to make one, then you have one to make for yourself. Choose peace over potential. Choose clarity over confusion. Choose consistency over empty words. Choose respect over temporary attention. Most importantly, choose yourself. Because the relationship you have with yourself will outlast every relationship you have with anyone else. Protect it. Feed it. Strengthen it. Honor it. Never allow another person's indecision to become your identity. Never measure your worth by someone else's willingness to commit. The right person won't make you spend years convincing them that you're enough. The right person won't make you feel like love is a competition. The right person won't reward you with the bare minimum and expect your gratitude. They'll see your value without needing to lose you first. They'll protect your heart instead of testing how much it can survive. And until that person becomes someone who refuses to settle. Become someone who walks away from uncertainty with confidence. Become someone who understands that loneliness is temporary, but sacrificing your self-respect can leave scars that last for years. Remember this every single day. The greatest relationship you'll ever build starts with the decision to stop abandoning yourself for people who keep abandoning their promises. Your future is too important to hand over to someone who can't decide if they want to be part of it. Your heart deserves certainty. Your loyalty deserves reciprocity. Your love deserves commitment. Never apologize for expecting consistency. Never apologize for expecting honesty. Never apologize for expecting someone to choose you if they say they love you. Those aren't impossible standards. They're the foundation of every healthy relationship. Walk away from excuses. Walk toward purpose. Walk away from confusion. Walk toward peace. Walk away from people who only realize your value when you're leaving. Walk toward the life that begins the moment you realize your value never depended on their decision. Because one day you'll look back and realize that the person who refused to commit wasn't the greatest loss of your life. The greatest victory was the day you finally stopped waiting. And on that day, you didn't just lose someone who couldn't choose you. You found the courage to choose yourself. That's where real love begins. That's where real confidence grows. And that's where your best chapter finally starts.